Hi everyone, welcome back. Sorry it's been a while again. I know I'm always apologizing. We meant to do this Wednesday, but got caught up in some other things. So it's Black Friday, at least in the US. So, and for those of you in the US, hopefully you had a really good Thanksgiving yesterday. We did. It's just really, really nice weather down here in Atlanta this time of year. I think it was 65 yesterday. So for those of you stuck in all the weather, I hope your travels went okay. So a couple things I want to talk about today. The first one being, yes, it's Black Friday, which gave me the impetus to talk about something. I know you've heard me talk about our book many times in the past. And most recently, we had a pre-buy here. I'm going to go through some details on it for you. But, it's basically one's owned by a non-builder owner. And lots of issues, a condition inspection that was signed off 2 weeks prior to the pre-buy. Now, in all fairness, and not trying to be judgmental on people, what goes on a lot in the amateur built community is the A&Ps, are required to sign off the condition inspection if you don't have a repairman certificate, which most non-builder owners don't. They're not an A&P, and obviously they don't have the repairman certificate. So there's a practice out there in the industry of the A&Ps allowing the owner to do the condition inspection, and they'll come by and look it over and sign it off. Truth be told, they don't know a whole lot about the amateur built aircraft unless they happen to have built one in the past or are familiar with particularly the RV line. So what we see happening a lot out there is a lot of stuff gets missed. And unfortunately, for people coming from the certified world, when you tell them, hey, it just had the condition inspection, which is an annual inspection in the certified world, everybody thinks, wow, that's good. Airplane should be good, at least for another year, right? But that's not always the case. And, whether there's malicious intent or just unknowing, not here to judge that, but would really, really recommend, if you're a non-builder owner, and even those of you who have built one, get the maintenance book. And it being Black Friday, the company that we use for print on demand called Lulu is actually having a 30% off discount. So that's kind of hard to beat. For those of you that might be watching and you have a friend or a family member that has an RV or an amateur built aircraft, makes a really nice Christmas gift, okay? So back to the Black Friday special on the book. We all know Carol's in charge of this stuff, so she's going to tell you how to do it a whole lot better than I can. Here's Carol.
Okay, so how do you get our books? So the easiest way to find where you can get them is to go to baselegaviation.com/store. Right now I'll have Lulu on the top because they're the ones having the 30% discount. But Aircraft Spruce and Vans Aircraft also carry the books, but they're not on sale there. But they always have them in stock and they get them out pretty quickly. With Lulu, it's print on demand. Normal delivery time is 2 weeks, but with the holidays, it always takes longer. So the best bet is to get them as soon as possible. I will have on the description under the YouTube channel the Lulu discount code, which is holiday30, all caps. So if you know what you're doing and you want to go directly to Lulu and search for the maintenance book or the pre-buy book, you can do that and put the discount code in. However, last year, several people complained that they didn't get the discount.
And so on the website, baselegaviation.com/store, I will have pictures that show
how you can tell you're getting the discount. But if you get to the very last step and it doesn't show that 30% discount, which brings the $69.95 price down to 48 something, then you're not getting it. So you're doing something wrong. So don't hit that final click button until you figure out what's going on, and you can find that out from the website. So I will have our website on the YouTube listed as well, and the discount code information and the terms of the discount, which goes through the beginning of December at some point. I will have that listed. That's how you get it.
Great, thanks. So very quickly, I'll give you an update on where we're at with the RV10, then I'm going to go through the details on the pictures on this pre-buy that I was talking about. So for those of you who are interested, I'm building our Baker's Dozen RV10. I've got the tail cone complete here. We're about a little over 300 hours into the build now. So all the empennage is complete, the tail cone's complete. Built 2 ailerons while I was waiting for the extended range fuel tanks to get shipped so I could start on the spars. If you look over here, I've got the spars set up on some sawhorses. I've got the ribs into one of the spars, the left spar actually, and hopefully today I'll get the ribs into the right spar as well. So making some progress there. I'm going to show you some neat tools that you want to have in your shop when you're doing this build. So let's go over here to the other side and show you. So one of the things I want to show you that you need to do in slow builds, which I actually kind of forgot about because the last slow build I did was the RV4 many, many years ago, is the flanges on the ribs and other things that have a flange on them. When they come out of the mold or the press, they're not really bent to 90 degrees. And you'll see that if you put a square on it. And Carol won't be able to get it with the camera here, but we've got a close-up of a still that you should be looking at right now. If you put a square on the side of it, you'll see that the flange, and I'm exaggerating, is up at an angle. It's not quite 90 degrees, and you want to get those flanges at 90 degrees. So it was interesting, fellow builder, and some of you may know Carl Froelich, sent a gentle reminder to me that, hey, there's a nice tool out there that makes this work quite easy, and I'm all about making this easy because I hate repetition. And his friend Tom Duran had made one of these for him. The plans are out there. I think it's an old RV Aviator from years ago. The plans are in there. And Tom Duran was really kind enough to go ahead and make one for me. So basically all you do is put the ribs in this thing and work it. Push it, just push it through, and it bends all the flanges to the proper 90-degree angle. So you'll see the picture of the square and how much nicer that is. So you've got a lot of ribs to do in the RV10. I think there's 15 main ribs or so per wing. It takes a little bit of time. And then what you have to do is actually flute the ribs. So we're going to walk over here. If you look, and we'll get a picture of you, if you look straight down the edge, I don't know if you can zoom in and see that, but you can see that this rib is actually curved. That's another result of it being made by a press. So we really want to straighten that. So basically you're going to use some fluting pliers here, and it's real easy to do. I have my DRT dimpler set up here, and I got a straight edge here. So you can see when you put this rib against the straight edge, the curve there. Is that showing up in the video? See that curve along the rib?
Yes.
Okay. Another thing I do is kind of sight down the rib and sight down the holes, and you can see they're curved. So you take these fluting pliers and you just gently between the holes, okay, and make sure you flute down. You'll see that it just straightens the rib out very nicely. Just very gentle. You can see it now. It fits real nice against the straight edge. And if you look down, we got a nice straight row of rivets. Okay, so that was our hint on building for this video. We'll do some more here in the not too distant future. So I want to take you back now to this pre-buy that I mentioned. What I'm going to do is walk you through some of the videos here. And all this stuff is covered in the book. And so you'll see, boy, if you had the book, you catch these things when you do your condition inspection. So let's see if we can point the camera. The first thing here, that you notice on a cursory glance when you're looking at the engine compartment is I take a look at the age of the hoses. A lot of the hoses that come from Vans or other companies that are made have labels on them. You can see this one is 4th quarter 02. So it's exceeded its life expectancy of 8 years by a substantial amount. Continuing through the engine compartment, one of the things we notice, and unfortunately it's a little bit blurry here, this is a really, really old engine. The data plate is missing, which is okay for an amateur built aircraft. That you can see underneath this gray paint is the original Lycoming blue paint. So it's a really old engine, and the logbooks actually indicated that. As a matter of fact, the logbooks were quite thin on what exactly had been done to this engine over the years. This is a picture of the air filter. Again, you can see this one is quite dirty. There's no way it was cleaned 2 weeks ago, and the airplane had about 2 or 3 hours on it at the time that we looked at it here since the condition inspection. So this was completely missed. Okay, one of the requirements for a condition inspection and an annual inspection, according to FAR Part 43, is that you should clean the engine. You can see how oily this engine was. Now, if this is truly oil from 2 hours of running, there's a pretty serious problem. So again, not being judgmental, we'll assume the engine was in fact cleaned. So we've got a pretty good leaking engine here if that's the case. You've all heard me talk about intake gaskets and hoses. These are very, very obvious here and should not have been missed. You can see how cracked they are. Here's oil running down the intake tube, but these are way past needing replacement. What will this cause? This will cause lean running cylinders, maybe rough idle, and higher cylinder head temps than normal. Here's one that's, you might call it a nit, but it should have been caught. The fuel flow transducer. This wire is supposed to be coming out the top. This is mounted on the firewall in this position right now. So it's just going to probably premature fail here. You know, if you look in the book, they're required to mount with the wire coming out the top. Here's a good picture of the intake gaskets. These are at the top of the tube where I showed you the hose connection there, and you can see how brittle and cracked they are. And we're not sure, but there looks like there could be a crack up here actually in the cylinder as well. This one was interesting. This is the side view of the oil cooler. This is the flapper door. You can see the piano hinge here. It was broken, and so it was cable tied shut. No note in the logbook. The airplane came from a northern state, so probably not needed this time of year to have the oil cooler door open, but it was going to a warmer climate potentially. Again, this should have been at least indicated that it was inoperative. This one was interesting. You can see the wear on the tail wheel here. I noticed this as I walked up to the aircraft. It's quite crooked on this tail wheel. You can see it. There's another picture that really demonstrates. I'm sure this made for some ground control issues. Basically, I think what has happened is the fork either got bent from a rough landing or it was not drilled vertically when it was actually, the airplane was constructed. Look at the spark plugs here. You can see these are massive electrode spark plug here. Look at all the lead fouling. This does not happen in 2 hours. This plug is just probably just a couple of strokes away from actually fouling. It's completely full of lead. You can see all in and around there. And another interesting thing was, I'll show you right here, there were multiple different kinds of spark plugs in the same engine and on the lower side. So we had a fine wire mixed in with some massive electrodes. And they were different heat range plugs, and you can see how fouled they are. Going back here, you look into what you're looking at here is down on the brake pedals. You can see the master cylinders here. These brake line hoses were extremely brittle. They would hardly move in there. So those were also past end of life. So these were the extended range fuel tanks. Somewhat a nit, some of you might think. Again, look at this from viewing from the ownership of a non-builder owner. They should be labeled fuel here. You get a new airplane, maybe it's an oil tank for aerobatics or smoke system, etc. So it is a requirement to label fuel tanks with quantity and type. Inspection panels are there to look at the extended range fuel tank system. I don't believe they were pulled. At least there were no indications. We looked in there. There were all kinds of fuel stains. It was a very current leak. This is all wet, where this is the extended range fuel tank inside the leading edge of the aircraft. So that needs to be fixed. You can see another fuel line leak here on the output of the pump from the extended range tank. This was a big one. What you're looking at here is the gear socket, the left main landing gear as it goes up into the engine mount. Very definitely a crack here. You can see it right here, and it's also indicated by all the rust coming through the powder coat in the gear leg. So it's most definitely a crack. And what caused that crack could be a bunch of hard landings, could just be wear over time. It's a common thing you need to look for in RV6s. But I will show you the real cause, I believe, here. This is the lower engine mount bolt. This is a castellated nut here. Excuse me a second. And I could reach this and just twist it with my finger. It was not torqued properly. So this being loose, this is the gear leg coming up into the socket, and the crack was right below in this area. This was a brake line on the right leg. It was also loose. It doesn't show up real well here, but you can see how wet it is. So fluid is leaking out the caliper onto the left gear brake. And that's it. These are just an example of, these are the real gaskets that go around the cylinder. You can see they've been torqued down too tightly. They crack, and so then they begin to leak. So people are used to continually torquing down on rocker cover gaskets when they start leaking. You do not do that with these real gaskets. They're very soft and pliable. They take very minimal torque. And if you torque them down too much, this is what happens over time. They deform and they crack.
So you said it was an RV6.
Mm-hmm.
How old?
I think it was a 2000 construction, somewhere early in the millennium there. So it was pretty old. Stuff was aged. There were some service bulletins that hadn't been complied with as well.
Okay.
And so anyway, you can see, again, the point is not to be judgmental. There's a lot going on in the amateur built industry, especially with the RVs. It's the most popular aircraft out there. So a lot of them are changing hands as the community ages, or people want to move on from 2-place to 4-place, whatever the case might be. And a lot of them are being sold to non-builder owners and don't necessarily know where to look or where the wear points are on the aircraft. So I would encourage you to please get the maintenance book. All right. Thanks for listening. Again, hope you had a happy Thanksgiving.